everybody, it's Lisa, and I am back and I am doing another podcast, and I have a very special guest, Alex Danielli, who is a GM in Portland, Oregon for one of my favorite brands, Fogo de Chão. But Alex, thank you so much for coming on with me today. I'm so excited.
No, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for everybody watching. It's a pleasure, like I was sharing with you, your material, all the information, all the data that you share with us in the industry is always very, very helpful. So I'm happy if we can help one person in the industry, that's a lot.
So Alex, I mean, one of the things we were just talking about is that we just kind of met through LinkedIn and just getting to know each other for the first time here. But what I loved about reading your LinkedIn post is you have an incredible backstory about not only your journey to Fogo, but just even how you got to Fogo. So I would love for you just to share a little bit about that.
So I think it's not only my story, but like a lot of immigrants, we come here with the American dream. I came here with no English, $100 in my pocket, a lot of dreams, a lot of goals. And restaurant business was the first one that started opening doors for me. So I started as a janitor, dishwasher, meeting the mop. You know, meeting a mop was something amazing for me. I always remember that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like the American movies. And it was very exciting for me to be cleaning and organizing and doing all that. And then I noticed I could do more than that. I saw the servers, I saw the hostess, and then I started focusing on learning English because I needed English. And learning English, studying a lot. I was in Georgia. I was able to transfer my credit from Brazil, from business degree to study business in Kennesaw University in Georgia. And I kept going. I kept going to go to chef, server. I went to Fogo in Atlanta, Georgia. And I stopped a little bit, like a lot of people do. They work in restaurant when they're young, and they stop. And I joined the Marine Corps. I was 4 years Marine. I was civil affairs. I went to Afghanistan, a lot of missions. I was super excited. Then I got my degree in criminology with my GI Bill, because I thought my path was gonna be through, making sure the bad guys were not in the streets. But then after criminology, work in the crime lab, I noticed, you work with a lot of sadness and a lot of tears and people crying, and I was missing the joy. I was missing the happiness I had in restaurant business, all the excitement. And I saw my friends at Fogo without the happiness. So I decided to put a stop on the career and start talking to Fogo. And I came back to Fogo as assistant manager in Kansas City, Missouri. And now I'm here 5 years in Portland, Oregon. And the pandemic was a whole new story, but
right. Well, we'll definitely get to that. But what an incredible story. And I think, you were saying is that you got to meet the mop. But I remember that post because when you were growing up, mops, not everybody had mops, literally. So even just those little things that, we take for granted, that, again, it's just through a filter of positivity. And that's what I love about you, Alex, is just that same filter of positivity, which is excellent. You had just mentioned, obviously, you experienced the pandemic, in Portland, Oregon, which, obviously had some of the most strict lockdown policies in the whole country. But what I'd love for you just to tell me about is kind of that resiliency and how joy, Fogo as a brand definitely was all about joy, always was, even during the pandemic. But how did you have to face all of this uncertainty, but making sure that joy was still front and center? I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so the pandemic, I want to talk a little bit before that about your book. I was reading these last few days since Barry sent to me, and I reading that I want my son to read this book in a few years. This is a history book that I wonder if he's going to have any idea what we were talking about. If people in the future are gonna really understand what we went through those days, right? Like how you mentioned the dates and the lockdown and where we were, and reading that, you get very emotional when you're in the front lines because it was really tough. But
well, and that's honestly, Alex, sorry to chime in on that, but that was totally one of the reasons I wanted to write it, because our memories fade, right? Is memories, and on a positive, we tend to remember the good things and we tend to forget the bad things sometimes. But I really felt like it was important in those early chapters. It's designed to actually have that little tension, right? Because we have to remember what it felt like, because we have to be able to learn from it. So I'm glad you're enjoying it so far, and look forward to hearing how the rest of it goes.
Yes, and then reading that part, people don't have any idea how in the restaurant business we had food, we had everything ready to serve people, and then all of a sudden, poof, you gotta close. And I think leadership is one of the most important things that any business can have. And Barry didn't come with any message saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna shut down. We may not exist," like a lot of business were doing. He came out and said, "Hey, now we're gonna make sure we feed our employees, we feed the community, use that food that we're not gonna be serving anymore, get creative and do something. We support you." So I had 150 employees at that time when we shut down. So I sent a message, "Hey, whoever needs any food, wanna come in, just come eat at Fogo. We'll make a to-go box. You can take it home. Feel free to come in anytime." Other thing that Fogo was very persistent is that all that unemployment, that every state was very different and very complicated for a lot of people that never did it. They were very confused. Like when you get back at the housing, a lot of restaurants, they don't know how to use a computer. So how were they gonna? And now the computers crashing because everybody was jumping to the internet. So Fogo, we got the office assistant and other people to come in when Fogo was paying them just to help the staff to be able to log in and fill it out and understand the computer. So that's when it started the message of joy, and we're here to support you. And then we started.
Yeah, and honestly, even just that is really incredible, because there's so many stories of people, again, from the front lines that were just taking care of each other. But even just the fact that helping people that might not know how to fill out the paperwork, to get the benefits that were available. I mean, that's amazing. And it's just that old expression, we're all in this together.
Yes.
Really, Fogo was a great example of that.
And then we start reaching out to places that needed food. And that's when we saw some bumps on the road. Like I called the news, because news and reporters, journalists, they were the front line. They were letting us know what was happening. So I started calling some news stations. "Hey, can we give some food for you guys? Because I knew you guys are working hard." They're like, "We're not allowed to accept any food because we don't want this to be a wrong message." So we're like, okay. So we start reaching out to firefighters, police departments, hospitals. We start helping that. In 24 hours, Fogo had a to-go menu that we never had it before. And we started delivering food to people's houses. And so the managers were delivering the food. And we noticed how people were afraid and just leaving the bag and calling, "Hey, the bag is right there." Everything seems so much like a movie, right? Like, oh my God.
It seems so long ago too, doesn't it? I mean, it was 3 years ago, but it seems like so long ago. But those memories are so important because, like you said, we became scared of each other.
Yes.
Consumers really became fearful and scared. And again, you guys lived through some very, very tough lockdowns.
And then, we had one of the worst ones, us, New York, and other 2 states. I don't remember the name now. But restaurants and hotels in downtowns were the worst because we didn't have a patio. We didn't have anything. When you can have a patio, we didn't have one. So we had the sidewalk. So we got some tents. We start putting there. In Portland, it rains a lot during the year, and it was very cold. And we start putting a tent out there, serving people food, and the food would get cold, but people would still want to come in.
Well, and people were looking for joy, right?
Yes,
even in the
birthdays.
cold weather, they would sit outside, cold weather, rainy, just to find joy.
Yes. And just supporting all that, we didn't make a lot of profit, maybe none. But it was just the message of bringing joy and making sure the community felt like things were going to be okay. You know?
And do you remember anything, like a specific example of, just from an employee perspective of, employees delivering joy once the customers were eating on the patio or whatever, like those little moments of joy? I mean, does anything come to mind on that? Like a little
Yes.
moment of joy?
I remember this couple, they were 90-year-old and they were celebrating their 60th anniversary, and they didn't want to stay home. And everybody was kind of afraid because we were talking about, elders, you got to be careful, they're vulnerable, COVID, and all that talk that we keep forgetting. Right. And everybody was afraid to get closer, and they're like, no, we're fine. We want to celebrate our anniversary. And we made sure they had the best anniversary ever. It was just 2 weeks after we could open outside, and just those moments. I think the dates were very important for people, birthdays, anniversaries. They wanted to feel important. I had this gentleman that he lost his wife, and he came in and he asked us to have a candle and to have a setting on the other side of the table. He wanted to feel the presence of his wife at the table. So we had a lot of special moments like that we were not used to it. And just COVID brought out the kind of feelings and emotions that we never felt before. And everybody was vulnerable. And I'm glad that you brought that on your book, so we don't forget that. That's very important for the future. Like Barry said, now we got to get ready for next crisis, right? What else is going to happen?
Yeah, it's always some challenges will happen. We just don't know exactly what they are, but being prepared, when you can go from almost zero revenue, you can get through anything, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you, so when you think about some of maybe the lessons learned or, things that you might have learned during the pandemic that you're still carrying forward today, because, of course we have inflation and, lots of kind of economic pressures, but what are some of the things that maybe you might not have thought to do before, or, that you carry forward from those lessons learned from the pandemic?
I think as a business leader, as a manager, I learned that you got to be soft with the staff and tough with the staff. So I learned how to be a little bit more flexible, because people want to enjoy their life a lot more right now. People really flip their mindsets after the pandemic about enjoying life. So I see a lot of my staff, we almost have 200 employees, they want to take their time. So we make sure if they want to take Christmas off as a server, they can. If they want to take Father's Day off, they can. If there's a special, before it was like, we're very busy, we really need you here. But now that was something that really changed me. It's like, okay, we got to make sure we're very good staff so we can accommodate everybody in the staff that needs a special date off or want to take some time off, because people are really thinking about their life and not only work.
Right. And that was definitely one of the big themes that you'll see in the book too, is I call it the great reassessment, is that people were reassessing what's important in their lives, reassessing how they spend their time. And so that's great. I think the restaurant industry as a whole, probably echoes what you just said, right? Is that life doesn't happen just between 9 and 5, or life doesn't happen just between, the outside of your shift, right? You can't always get stuff done outside of the shift that you have. So I think that that's a good industry lesson. I do want to kind of go back to something so living in that Portland area was, like Barry and I talk a lot about, like in Dallas, right at, Legacy West, where you go outside and it was just so eerily quiet. Like there was just nobody around. So what was it like in Portland? Was it, in those early days where people were just, stay home for 2 weeks.
Yeah, people were really staying home or moving somewhere, farther from downtown. So we could see March, April, but the May happened. And in May, it was completely different for us. We were the city that had the most protests in the country. So we saw daily protests and we got vandalized a lot. We got a mix of vandalism with protests. And but we were going through. We made sure everybody was safe, everybody was good. Just reaching out to everybody in the community that we could. So we saw both two sides of the pandemic: one before May, one after May.
Well, and do you feel like having that presence during those tough times? How do you think that improved how people saw you guys as a community member, right? So that you guys were there during those tough times. How do you think that impacted how people viewed the brand?
Since Fogo has done so much for the city here, everybody, any religion, any background, we don't see colors, race, accents, anything like that. I can see the whole city embracing. We are the busiest restaurant in Portland, Oregon. OLCC, that does the liquor license, tell us that we get the most liquor of anybody and the most food than anybody. So I think that's a reflection of really supporting the community. When you turn around on the time of crisis and you say, hey, we don't care about profit right now, we're really gonna give back and make sure the city can come back strong. I think that return that we get afterwards is just the empowerment from everybody else. So as a brand, I can see nowadays that they really embraced us for that reason.
That kind of brings me to the next area, which is you got a big award recently, didn't you? Yes?
Yes.
So for everybody out there, so Alex, actually, out of all of the Fogos in the world, actually, Alex was recognized as Fogo's General Manager of the Year. And so tell me about that moment when you found out. So tell me about that.
It was really hard. We have this award every year, and we never know. They keep the best secret they can. And, it was just very shocking for me for being, let's say, a brand new general manager. I was a GM for 4 years, but just always really hitting the key of you cannot be a manager. And I say this not only to restaurant, but any business out there. You can't be a manager on 4 walls only. You gotta get out into the community. As a business owner or business leader or business manager, you get many, many invitations to go places, to visit places, to do something for your community. So we do it all. We make sure every high school, elementary school silent auction, we are involved. Everything, everybody that asks for help, we help. So I think that was one of the factors in the diversity, building a big diversity on the staff. Whenever we do a job interview, we don't talk about getting a job. We talk about career path. Even somebody applying for dishwasher, I tell them my story as a dishwasher. I was like, hey, let me tell you this. You're applying for dishwasher now, but there is a career path at Fogo that you can become a GM. I'm a result of this. So we talk about the career path. We promoted more than 32 managers across the country from Portland. Preparing these people for the industry and make sure people get ready, because I truly believe that if you pass the ownership mindset to every team member, your business is going to be better. If you teach everything you know, if you share all the information you know to your team, your company is going to be better. So that's what we did, and that's how we doubled the revenue since we got here. We got all the numbers to be really, really good looking and really nice numbers. But the most important was the people. For Fogo, number one, 4 key desires are people. So just promoting, giving a career path, diversity, empowering women, and making sure everybody has a place and you can provide those opportunities. I think that was one of the key things that we got this award, is just opening doors for people and not thinking
and I love that, Alex, because that just speaks to actually how humble you are, because it was the community, it was the people, it was all those things, but it was your leadership, that obviously enabled that. So I would say a big shout out to you.
Thank you.
I guess, we talked a little bit just before this about just the industry, and one of my kind of passion projects, even beyond the business of joy, is just I talk about how we have to remind our consumers why they fell in love with the brand in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel this huge passion just to remind people why this industry, the restaurant industry, is such a great place to work. And so I would love your thoughts on that, to say, if you were talking to, and you work with people, young people all the time, but what would you tell young people that maybe have never, you have all this negativity with the bear and, all this, the bad rap that the industry got. So what would you tell young people today about why it's the best industry to work?
When I do the job interviews with younger people, I ask them, I was like, what is your dream? What is your career path? What are you looking for? And most of the young staff I talk to, or the young interviewers, they don't know. I'm very surprised. They don't know. Maybe 30 years ago, they would say, I want to be a lawyer or a doctor. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, they just say, I don't know. So I tell them, hey, so let me tell you this. If you get this job as a busser or a host, you can grow. You're going to learn how to coordinate the door. You're going to learn the logistics. You're going to learn how to put stuff away. You're going to learn the menu. You can do this. You're going to learn inventory. And I showed them, I was like, people pay a lot of money to learn inventory and accounting. We can teach you all that. We have in a row position, we open 10, 12 restaurants a year. Once you show me, you prove to me that you're reliable and a good worker and good character, we'll send you on trips so you can learn that. So I want to give you a career path. And they're like, wow, nobody really told me that. So I think a lot of the young people are really looking for a mentor. A lot of businesses are not being mentored nowadays. They're just looking for somebody to clock in, clock out. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes in any industry, is when you look for somebody to clock in, clock out.
Right. Well, and I think it's, when the labor shortage, during the pandemic, I think people, I know this is a stereotype, but yeah, I think you're right. People were just like, let me have a warm body to clock in and clock out. But what it says is, with that mentorship, and people want to be seen and heard, and, having a career path, it does speak volumes about you as a leader. But I know Fogo has the same approach, which is, that longevity is really part of the culture in the brand. But anything else that you would tell young people today of why it's a great industry?
Yes, and to tell them to be patient. They do not need to be in a rush. When they're young and they're learning, they can take their time. I tell everybody young that's starting a restaurant business, like, hey, the first week is very awkward. I've been there. We all been there. It's gonna be awkward. We gotta let them know. How many businesses are letting them know that it will be awkward? You're not gonna know where the restaurant is. You're not gonna know the right uniform. You may have a lot of questions. One of the things is the communication. We have a very open communication through phone, email, software, and all that. Having a communication, because a lot of the new generation, they're not very good about talking face to face.
Right. They want a text message.
Yes.
Text message. Yeah.
They're great behind the screen, but they have a very hard time to tell you something face to face. So right. Once you open the door, they really ask you a lot lot of questions.
No, I think that's great. Yeah.
And training process, I did share with Fogo corporate that people are taking longer sometimes to learn a position, you know, and we are understanding that. And Fogo does a great job on that part. We're very patient. We cannot expect somebody to learn something in 3 days, 4 days. We got to be patient and understand that sometimes it takes 3 weeks,
Right.
And people have different ways of learning, and Fogo has been having some new tools of training, video, book, trainer, because I forgot the name, but there's different ways that people learn, right?
Yeah, different styles. People have different learning styles. Yeah.
And in the past, we used to just give a book. You learn with that book, and that's how it is, or through a video. Now we gotta share a lot of different ways, and I think the young generation is really appreciating that. But we as business leaders, we gotta show them we are mentors. We're not a punisher. We're there to help them, to teach them, and whatever they need, they can reach out to us, because the biggest mistake a leader can do is put fear on the employees when they're afraid to talk to you or to share something with you. Yes, you do open a very complicated door right there, because they may tell really everything is going on, and you got to know how to filter.
Yeah.
But with the young generation, you do need to open doors.
Well, and I think that goes kind of as a nice kind of tying back to joy, not fear, right? Because if young employees, they don't, well, even any age employees, if there's a sense of fear that you can't be open and honest with your manager, then that's never a recipe for success. So even that whole lead with joy, not fear, applies to employees, of course.
I saw in your book that part, and I was like, I think we think a lot alike.
Yeah, well, and I know you just got the book, so I can't wait to hear more. My last question is, I always just kind of like to land on this one, which is like, how do you want to be remembered personally and professionally?
I do want to be remembered as a mentor. I do like hiring people that are smarter than me, that are better than me. I want to make sure that people are going to be more successful than me. I want to make sure all my almost 200 staff members, I do want them to pass me in my professional life. I'm going to be so happy with that. I want to be known as a passionate, as a leader that opened doors, that make sure they had this, how do you say, like pleasure place to work. Like they were pleased to work in that place, that they love to go there. Everybody knows me at Fogo as a 24/7 kind of guy. I don't believe, and that's my personal opinion, I don't believe in unplugging. I do believe as a business leader, with the world how it is, with any crisis that can happen anytime, you got to be plugged 24/7. And a misfit. I like the word misfit. Sometimes you got to be a little misfit to make sure everything is okay, to make sure you understand the different misfits coming out of the workforce, because people nowadays, they're more free than ever to be whoever they want, to have whatever identity they want. In Portland, Oregon, we see a lot of those facts coming up, and we got to respect that, understand that, and make sure we focus on their professional life, not on their personal life.
Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah. So to be a mentor, to be passionate, and then always available, and then just, I love the misfit, is that, just everybody we're all kind of our own quirky little selves, right?
You remember Steve Jobs' favorite poem, right? About misfits in business, that sometimes you got to be a little misfit. Because we got to be a little different and make sure we are showing the people the right path.
I love that. I love that. Well, Alex, it has been a pleasure to finally have this face-to-face talk with you, because like I said, I feel like I've known you forever. And so what a pleasure and what a joy to spend a little time with you. So, and the journey continues, right?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. And keep writing, keep sharing information with us. I'm always excited when you say I have more data to share. I'm like, yes. She got more data to share.
That's very good. All right.
Keep doing that for us.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.